Hi, and welcome back to the Prado Museum in Madrid, Spain. We're here live on the Prado social media programming a few moments before the museum opens to enjoy another work of art together in our weekly sessions in English that are made possible thanks to the support of the members of American Friends of the Prado Museum. And we encourage everyone to find out about the mission of supporting the Prado either through friends, American friends, or the amigos, the Spanish amigos, and we thank you all for your support. Today we are in a special section of the 19th century galleries that are dedicated for the next 6 months to an exhibit on portraiture by the Spanish artist Joaquin Sorolla, because it's the 100th anniversary of his death this year, as he died in 1923. And we're going to look at this painting that was recently acquired by the Prado Museum of Manuel Bartolomé Cossío, who was a friend of Sorolla. He was a leading intellectual in Spain, an educator, a renovator, and also a very important art historian. He wrote the first kind of modern art history of El Greco, and this was published in 1908, which is the same year of this painting. If we look at the wall panel, Joaquin Sorolla was born in Valencia, but then he moved his studio to Madrid and became part of this group of leading intellectual and social circle. He leaves us today this gallery of their images, and this painting of Bartolomé Cossío is a direct reference and pays tribute to both Velázquez and El Greco, both artists which Sorolla would have studied and seen here at the Prado Museum. So we see Bartolomé Cossío here as an elongated figure, very referencing to El Greco. His publication of his important study of El Greco here on the table, and an image of the classical, the iconic work of El Greco of a nobleman with his hand on his chest. So Sorolla includes that direct reference to this painting. And if we remember that painting, or if you want to see it on the website, if you can't visit the Prado Museum, there is a direct reference of making Cossío kind of a modernized, classical Spanish gentleman, just like the nobleman with his hand on his chest, that he's dressed in black. We have white only at the collar and a little bit on his cuff, his hand cuff. Black is elegant, somber, and has these two details of white. And then the El Greco painting portrait of the nobleman has if you remember, he has a fallen shoulder. His left shoulder is fallen, and the space is created with a white line, which Sorolla includes here, a white line on Cossío's left shoulder. Very reminiscent of the painting. So it's a direct tribute and homage. And then also a moment to talk about Sorolla's technique. If we look at Bartolomé Cossío's face, he is putting the pigment directly on and seems to spread it with a spatula. Sorolla is very talented. He can get to a likeness of his sitter very quickly, and he was very successful as a portraitist. Joaquin Sorolla, sometimes we think of him, he's more famous for his beach scenes of Valencia and the light of the Mediterranean, but his portraiture is very, very important, both in Spain, as he even got up to make a portrait of King Alfonso XIII, but also he was discovered and traveled to the United States with a collector there who had seen his work in international exhibits in London, and this was Archer Milton Huntington of the Hispanic Society. He was an American collector who was smitten with Spanish culture, art, literature, and dedicated his entire life to collecting and promoting Spanish art in the United States. And he sponsored, in a sense, Sorolla to travel to New York. And it was through this contact, not only commissioning work to Sorolla but introducing him to society, that Sorolla even was able to make portraiture of the leading business elite in the United States, socialites, but even the President of the United States, a portrait of William Howard Taft. So to put Sorolla into perspective as a portraitist, he was very successful. And he was also, to talk a little bit about his biography of Sorolla, and then also Bartolomé Cossío. Very quickly, Sorolla's artistic career, he took the official route, applying to all of the official competitions, the national competition in Spain, the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, and he won the Paris Grand Prix in 1900, and that's what really launched him internationally and began to have international exhibits as well as his work here in Spain. And then Bartolomé Cossío, oh wait, I also wanted to say something about photography. When he was young in Valencia, he worked for a while in a photographer's studio, hand coloring photographs. And this possibly might have impressed upon him the role of light, how photographs are light and dark, and the role of light in painting, which would probably influence him later. And also is where he found his beloved Clotilde, which is his wife, who was a muse in many of his paintings, and she was the daughter of that photographer. One moment about who Bartolomé Cossío is. Bartolomé Cossío is a leading intellectual. He's part of a renovating educational movement that revolves around an institution called the Institución Libre de Enseñanza, which has been translated as the Independent Teaching Institute. And this is much more than a school. This is a whole movement of intellectuals that are trying to renovate and innovate the educational system in Spain from the university downward to have a new approach to learning, a new way for the student to participate much more holistically, much more empirical based, observation based, much more scientific method. And it's not reserved for the elite. They're really trying to renovate the whole educational system in Spain, even getting to rural Spain, to create a better educated, more prepared population for the good of the country and the population in itself. And so here we have Sorolla. His daughters went to the Institución Libre de Enseñanza. He was friends with Bartolomé Cossío. Cossío was very important for the Prado. He was part of the first Royal Board of Trustees for the Prado Museum. He brought back into importance El Greco. El Greco was kind of forgotten, and his first publication and study of El Greco really helped bring El Greco back into importance so that his work would not go undervalued or misseen or misplaced. He's really brought back the value of El Greco and helped to bring paintings back on view of El Greco, and basically so that they wouldn't be undervalued and just sold off. He is next also here to a painting of Francisco Giner de los Rios, who was Cossío's mentor and predecessor in the institution, in the Independent Teaching Institute. And this is a painting of the posthumous Francisco Giner de los Rios, and it says here, "To my good friend Cossío." So Sorolla painted this painting as a gift to Bartolomé Cossío of his beloved teacher and mentor. And the Independent Teaching Institute really brought together a large part of the intellectual society in Madrid of the time, and it was very interesting. And Sorolla himself, he also was able to leave a large legacy. The paintings here at the Prado are mostly portraiture. There's 23 works of his, and almost all of 18 are portraits. And it helps us have a view of society of the time and the leading intellectuals. So thank you very much for watching us today, and we encourage you to visit the website, and also to join our mission of supporting the Prado Museum either through the Friends or the Amigos in Spain. And thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.